find inspiration in the real world, the world around us. Specifically for my series Upkeep, it's about the Toronto housing crisis. I guess other places have housing crises too, but that's where I live. And it's a housing horror. It's about people who can't find a house, and what would you do, and who would you kill for your dream home. So as a person who, lives in Toronto, as a person who knows lots of other people who either maybe have a house, maybe they're looking for a house, maybe they're renting, it's too real. And that's where I get it.
Stylistically, I grew up reading a lot of manga, so there are a lot of like Eastern stylistic references in my work. Things like Sailor Moon or like shonen. Like the first, I think anime also I got into was like Dragon Ball Z as a kid. So there's definitely like that influence. I think will always be with me stylistically. And then when I went to university, I got really into like the indie comic scene and like zine scene. That you would find stuff at like TCAF or like local small pop-up artist alleys, and like I think that also influenced my work. When it, like in university, I was just trying to like take influence from everything and kind of build my own style. So I feel I get that a lot where people are like, oh, this is kind of I feel like you're like this artist, you're like this artist, and I think as you grow as an artist, you kind of just like pick and choose a little bit of everything. But yeah, I'd say the biggest influence is probably manga. Yeah.
I would say probably my biggest inspiration is history. I love history. I love old things. I love things. My wife accuses me of loving things because they are about to fall down, and it's generally true. Totally into exploring ruins. I have a bit of a fear of drawing straight lines. So things, the older they are, the more crumbly, the better. And so I think I draw from that a lot. I draw from the fiction I read. I read a lot of fiction, a lot of stories, and I love just discovering different ways of storytelling and how that storytelling intersects with the visual and how those things all come together. But mostly I draw my inspiration from my world around me, I would say. Yeah.
It's a great question. And that varies day to day and over time. Typically I go back to I've got a big art book collection of traditional historic art, like Rembrandt's my guy, if you know me. But I find inspiration even like my friends around here. I love the painterly guys, guys like Dave McKean and Sienkiewicz. If you've seen me on any of these, I talk about those guys a lot. Like George Pratt, Kent Williams is a good friend. I kind of look all the time and look at new things. And you can just flip through Instagram looking at art all the time, and either just it's very discouraging or inspirational depending on your perspective or how you feel that day. But I try and like take it in and feed from it and figure out, oh, how did that guy do that, and like where did he learn that from, and then try and put that into my own work. If that's kind of the short answer. If I look at magazine illustration, I go to a lot of art galleries when I travel. And try and read. I just picked up a whole bunch of books off of Chip down the way there, all the distillery stuff. So lots of great art happening in those books. You got Becky Cloonan and Tula Lotte and Ian Bertram, like all kinds of guys that I love. Guys and gals. I say guys colloquially. Yeah, but it's all over the place. And just going outside, walking through nature, I mean, inspiration's all over the place if you know where to look.
I mean, I think it's such an interesting thing because you never really know where inspiration is going to hit. Like sometimes it can be that I read something, like for example, when I was writing Soupy Leaves Home, it was someone had done a Facebook meme that said, "What's your hobo name?" And I was like, my hobo name would be Soupy because I like soup. And then I was like, wait, what is a hobo? And then I started doing research. And as I started doing research and learning about kids who would like ride the rails and stuff, that's where that book was born, So it could be a Facebook meme. It could be that I've read an interesting book. It could be that, I don't know, something has come into the public domain or, suddenly you're like, what would Jane Eyre be like in space, And like, it really just comes from, I think, having an open heart and ear and being open to where curiosity will take you. So for me, that's what it is. It could be, I don't know, I'm in Guelph and there was like a Iron Horse train that's like on the street over there, and I was like, ooh, that's kind of interesting. Maybe a story will be born. You never know.
So I draw inspiration on my hikes. They just come to me from I don't know where, and I feel privileged to be able to just kind of put them out there.
Okay, so inspiration for me comes from a lot of places. I would say movies, TV shows is a big influence on me. Ever since I was a kid, I don't know, always helped drive narratives in my head and things like that. But then also other comics as well. I pretty much grab some inspiration from anywhere. Like sometimes it's my kids and my family, my friends, my neighborhood. Witcher Wickerson is named after my street in my neighborhood. So I grabbed inspiration from there. And so it's like I'll grab it from wherever I can get it.
For my own work, I think I found inspiration from my life since I did an autobiographical novel. But for art and for my other work, I find it in daily life and other artists that I admire. I think what I make is a blend of everything that I enjoy. So it could be a movie, could be another book, could be another comic and a graphic novel. So.
I would say I find inspiration from just about everywhere. I'd say from life, that's one of the places, but also from movies, comics, stories. Basically, anything that I find inspiring might give me that inspiration. Even dreams, actually. I've drawn stuff from dreams. I've gotten some inspiration from some of my dreams in the past. But so I'd say just about everywhere. Anything that I find interesting may inspire some sort of artwork.
Where do I find inspiration? I find inspiration every day in everyone we interact with and every little thing that we see and just every little thing that either affects us in the smallest ways. The things that bother us, the things that make us smile. It's everywhere. It's all around us.
Pretty much everywhere. All around me. People that I meet, places that I go to, places I visit, stuff that I read, music that I hear, stuff on the news, stuff online, things my kids say and do. Basically everywhere.
Everywhere is the short answer. The longer answer is, man, how do you even start? Yeah, everywhere. So it'll be a spark that comes from watching something or reading something or just being out and about or all sorts of places. And one of the things I love about comics especially is that it's because it's a pop culture medium, it borrows or steals, depending on how you want to phrase it, from everything else. And that's one of the things I love to do. So, and I think that kind of shows in the work that I do, especially work I've done with Kieran Gillen. The Wicked and Divine is essentially everything that we love pushed into a comic. Life, basically, just experiencing life. One for Sorrow, the book I'm doing right now, that started out as the main character, and that started out as my character in a game of Blades in the Dark that Kieran ran a couple of years ago. It's something very different now, but that's the spark of it. Everything is the long rambling answer.
All over the place, of course, through all my domestic relationships with my family. Those are pretty inspiring. But when it comes to comics making, I think lately I've been really inspired by Canadian history. Surprise, surprise, given that we have been doing action, adventure, historical fiction since 2017. So I love the spaces between the lines in the history books. Things that we know this happened and we know that happened, but we don't know what happened between or how they got there. So I find that there's lots of good room to play, and travel. So every time you get to go to a new place, I find a great story or a piece of folklore that I just want to explore through sending a protagonist into that situation and see how it plays out. So history, travel, and family dynamics.
Pretty much everywhere. And the thing is, what I've been doing lately has been trying to find inspiration outside of comics. So that way, the inspirations don't feel like recycled ideas. Like trying to get out of my comfort zone of reading of reading books or watching film of genres that are outside of my comfort level. And that's what I've been doing. Actually, this is the week of TIFF, so I've been watching a lot of great international films, and just feeling inspired, and just not only just feeling like looking for inspiration, but just to be entertained in different ways I didn't know would be possible. So yeah, just looking at inspiration outside of your bubble.
So I find inspiration in a lot of different places. Obviously, my work is very manga and anime inspired, so I would say a lot of vintage manga is a place I often go for inspiration, especially graphic design wise. For example, I just ordered the entire print run of My the Psychic Girl, which was published by Dark Horse in the 80s or 90s, I believe. And it's solely so that I can look at the graphic design of the covers because it's really beautiful. I also have a fashion design background, so I get a lot of inspiration from runway shows and editorial photo shoots. Obviously, I love comics of all different, styles and mediums, but I especially love the alt comic scene. And then, as someone who works in Risograph, I also really love printmaking. So, looking at gig posters and silkscreen designs, even like just signage for like vintage businesses I love to look at. So I think that you can find inspiration in a lot of different places. I just love art and design so much, so it's kind of easy for me to be inspired by all sorts of different stuff.
Well, I think I've talked about this before with you, but doodling, where you are just basically loosely filling up a page with line work that's very lightly drawn, and you have no idea what you're going to be getting. You just kind of let your hand flow, and when you finish filling the page, you look at it, and if you can see like heads or patterns, maybe you see a dragon in it, it helps with imagination, right? It helps you to start to activate the mind's eye part of your brain that can see visuals, and hopefully it can help you with any kind of like story you're working on or characters, or it creates a character for you.
Well, in the case of the particular book that I have in front of me that just came out, The Moon Prince, the inspiration came one night a long time ago, around 2008. I was watching TV at channel surfing, and up comes this movie version of The First Men in the Moon by H.G. Wells that was made in the 1960s. And it was very campy. So it had great cheesy sets and costumes, and they land on the moon and they plant the Union Jack for the Queen right there on the moon. And I was laughing so hard and thinking, this is so great. It reminds me of the adventure stories I read as a kid by Edgar Rice Burroughs. And I thought, I wish my kids could have the same experience of loving a book as much as I loved those books. So I went downstairs to see if I could find one, because at the time my kids were about the right age. And I found one, and I opened it up for the first time in 30 years and took a look at it and went, I can't show them this. It's horribly racist. So I thought, what would it be like to do an adventure story that was kind of in the same spirit, but didn't have so many of the same problems around things that today we look at and say, well, that's just not right. And that's what I tried to do. It's based on our own two kids. This is my wife, Melissa, over here. It's based on our own two kids, Max and Molly, because they posed for it. And if you look inside, you can see the picture of them posing right there for the cover. So that was the inspiration of the book.
I think I find a lot of my inspiration in other comics. Like I get charged up creatively reading what other people are doing, seeing artist choices and writers' choices, and getting me revved up for what comics can do and why I like them. And that keeps me reading. So I guess that's where I get some of my inspiration.
I find it. I still enjoy perusing like bookstores and such. So, in particularly the picture book section of pretty much any bookstore, and when I travel, I tend to gravitate towards bookstores as a place to you know, especially to find, you know, local stuff in other countries and whatnot. So yeah, exploration really. Yeah. Inspiration can come from almost anywhere. I find the fact that I write and illustrate that once I lock myself in my studio, that I start to think inwards, and I look back at my life and certain situations, and a lot of those moments, awkward artistic moments or moments of self-doubt, come to play and make their way into my stories. So whether it be in the Darren's Drawing series, where Darren is finding out who they are as an artist and is finding the courage to share their work with others. That was something I struggled with when I was young. And now, as a grown up artist, looking back at the artists who've inspired me and looking at other artists whose work I've never been introduced, but in the Gathering Place series, a lot of these artist stories, we all share a common thread that connects us all, and it's this want or this need to communicate, but also being afraid to get out there and out of our shell, of our comfort zone. So as artists, we need to be able to juggle the two of communicating, getting out there, and still wanting to be, you know, locked in our studio, being as creative and free as we want to be. So I find that looking back at life, looking back at my situations that I've had to encounter and endure, has been a sort of a wellspring of inspiration for a lot of my stories.
Where do I find inspiration? That's a wonderful question. I think inspiration is a luxury, and I don't find inspiration anywhere, because if I wait around for it to strike me, I will go hungry. I need to eat. So my inspiration is make the money, meet the deadline, and carry on.
Well, for my graphic novel, Tales from Family City, I look at film noir films, old film noir. That's an inspiration.
Well, a lot of my comics are memoir comics and comics about sort of like what the life of the world that's happening around me. So many of my comics are like based in my city or my neighborhood and things that happen to me. Even my fictional comics are very much based in things that happen to me. So I feel like my inspiration for my stories and things and what I draw is just sort of from the life around me and from me like witnessing things. I mean, artistically or visually, my inspiration, I take a lot of my inspiration from like posters and the music scene and vintage graphic design. I got into comics pretty recently, so my comics influences are sort of new influences for me, but my more like through my life influences have more to do with the kind of like graphic posters of bands and fashion maybe and book covers and things like that.
Honestly, when after I finish a big deadline and I blow all my fuses and I lie on the couch and it's like time to take a walk, that's when just going out in nature, just breathing, like taking the sights in, just going into some big shops, buying whatever. Like it's just kind of taking in like everyday living a bit and letting like the imagination like revamp itself again. And when I rest, I have my dreams, and then all my dreams are a great source of inspiration for me, and the nightmares too.
It's kind of random. Often life. Sometimes a rock hits me. Occasionally, it's very kind of purpose driven or like goal driven. There's a thing I want to do. It must look like this. How do I get there? And then it's not inspiration, it's pathfinding. And that's about it. But, you know, I think the most interesting and fun one that probably people enjoy hearing is when it's sort of just impulse improv. So like automatic drawing. And you're just doing stuff. And then at the end of it, you make up a story to explain what you did. And pardon my language, but you know. And that's kind of the most fun, because that's just like an afternoon playing at the drawing table.
Everywhere.
lot of it comes from things that you grow up with or are remembering, like cartoons. I'll watch cartoons off to the side when I'm drawing, and I find inspiration in that. Old movies, lots of times it's old black and white movies. And a lot of the time, the inspiration comes when if you're working on a project and it's there in the back of your mind. It sometimes helps to just do regular stuff, like if you're washing the dishes or taking the trash out. Your mind doesn't really care about that stuff. It's thinking in the background, and then something might spark an idea, and then that's when you make sure you have a sketchbook on hand, or you start recording. You start saying exactly. There's many times in the car I'm driving, because driving is pretty monotonous, and I'll just start recording ideas, things that come to me, and hopefully there's a spark there, and it's something worth pursuing.
I mean, is it kind of a cop-out answer to say kind of anywhere and everywhere? I mean, you might just you never know where it's going to come from. Like sometimes you're reading a thing and you're like, oh, I could do a better job of that. That has happened to me. Sometimes it's like things like my Three Thieves books came about because my older son, when he was 3 years old, asked for a story with a castle in it. And I ended up doing like a 7-book series based off that one little prompt. Two Generals came about because I found my grandfather's 1943 diary. You might read something in the paper. You might just see something walking down the street. It's just, like if you're kind of just open and looking around and willing to be inspired, you'll probably get inspired. And that's my answer.